You know a certain Mr. Leon Marshall of Boston?
We do indeed.
My notary communicated to me the condition of Mr. Marshall's will, by which he makes your son John his sole heir.
You'll have to pardon me. When I was a boy, I think I saw a little portrait of Leon Marshall.
Yes. It could be.
I came to find you.
I would like to know why. Now is not the time.
I agree.
You're interrupting. It seems odd. An old bachelor with no heirs leaves his fortune equally to both brothers. That would be simple and natural. You won't have to work again. You can travel wherever you choose. Though I think you would rather land the widow, Lucia.
Well, she's clearly here for you.
I'm sure he needs someone to make him happy.
That is not my intention.
Well, what are your intentions?
All that I thought. It's untrue.
About what?
Myself, everything. Do you even understand what I'm talking about?
Do you?
Cassia! I know that you're jealous of me.
Jealous? You know you owe me money.
Just can't pay it all now. Settle down.
Settle down.
It's all right.
So we've just seen a movie clip from Peter and John, which is a newly produced movie by our guest, who I would call him is quintessential the right word, independent movie producer, and in terms of independent films, his name and reputation is synonymous with New England. And Jay Craven, welcome to our program here.
Yeah.
So,
well,
so this movie, Peter and John, was showing at the Bennington Museum, a very successful event. And tell our viewers, I mean, we just watched the clip. Tell our viewers the genesis of. And I think that's your 8th film about New England, right?
it is. Yeah, in terms of dramatic films, it is. I've also done some documentaries. But, well, the project came about sort of unpredictably. I was actually involved with a benefit event that I was staging on Nantucket, and with the actor Chris Noth, who has been in The Good Wife and Sex and the City. And the local newspaper was, I mean, I was doing it in partnership with a local person on Nantucket, and local newspaper was interviewing me and said, well, are you going to do a movie on Nantucket? You're here to raise money, you're going to do a movie on Nantucket. And I just, in the spur of the moment, said, yeah, why not? You know, sure. And they said, what will it be? And I knew this story because I'd been involved with it 10 years earlier with a British producer where the project collapsed just 3 weeks before it was supposed to go into production, when 2 producers got into argument with each other on the tarmac of the Berlin International Airport in Germany. So the project collapsed. But I knew the story, and when I thought Nantucket, I thought immediately of the story because it's a seaside story and it's a period story, and Nantucket is very rich in its sensibility of the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries. And, you know, the Main Street cobblestones and the old pre-Civil War housing and the rest. And so it sort of started unexpectedly, and people immediately offered to be of help, to get involved. And with every movie, they're all made in a different way, and how it gets financed is always critical. People came forward, were interested, helped to raise money. I raised money. The state of Massachusetts has a film incentive program, so it is possible to get 25% of most of your expenses underwritten by the state of Massachusetts. Usually it's Hollywood movies that take advantage of this, but why not an independent film and much lower budget? But so it sort of came together that way. It was pretty much, I mean, my filmmaking is about community engagement, and that's been true of the Vermont films. And in this case, Nantucket really showed itself very early on interested and willing to engage. So a lot of the nonprofits in the community, the Nantucket Historical Association especially, which is a huge organization with 42 full-time employees and a warehouse with 35,000 historical artifacts, made those available to the production. So it became it was shot during the off-season in Nantucket, where the population of the place is only probably 10,000 people. But it was an exciting, community-engaged production with a lot of different players, and of course, I think a really good cast that came together for it. I also make movies now through a collaboration with Marlboro College, where I teach, where every 2 years we put together a film-intensive semester where 24 professionals mentor and collaborate with 32 students from a dozen different colleges that come in. So this was also that kind of project.
Well, you mentioned Marlboro College, and I'd like to talk about that a little further in a minute. And Chris Noth, who you just referred to, was a graduate of Marlboro College. But in the latest film here, Peter and John, you had Jacqueline Bisset in that film, who, of course, very credentialed actress through the years. And you've been you're sort of like the master at convincing and motivating some great talent to very credentialed talent to be in your films.
Yeah, no, I've been very lucky. Starting with my first feature film, Where the Rivers Flow North, Rip Torn, Michael J. Fox, Tantu Cardinal, American Indian actress. Were really important to the film. Michael's involvement was able to help us get $500,000 of foreign sales advance money for the production. Stranger in the Kingdom, Ernie Hudson, Martin Sheen. Disappearances, Chris Christopherson, Genevieve Bujold.
Jessica Hecht.
Jessica Hecht, who's Tony Award nominated actress in New York.
Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern.
You had him at
Bruce.
the time he had won an Academy Award, right?
Well, he'd been nominated.
Right.
Bruce has 2 nominations. Has worked with Hitchcock and Elia Kazan and a lot of different directors. So yeah, I've been lucky. I mean, and it mostly is about you try to get the script in front of them, and they like scripts. They respond to certain material, and they responded to these stories and these characters especially. And the chance to play them, and so I've been on the lucky side of that.
Well, how do you achieve that? I mean, the movies you are making are on the austere side in terms of budget, and these are not big budget pictures with names like Fox on them, or Paramount Studios, or Universal, and yet again you've accomplished getting the intrigue and interest on the part of a lot of major talent. What's your secret on that?
Well, I mean, it's all about strategy, really. Just how do I get my script in front of an actor? How do I get them to consider it? How do I convince them the production is for real? And now with students, how do I convince them that it's still a professional level of production, even though students are involved? And, I've just been lucky. I mean, in each case, Michael J. Fox, I met because because I've done a lot of arts work in the Northeast Kingdom over the years, and a guy that was part of my audience up in the Northeast Kingdom moved to South Woodstock, Vermont, when Michael had a house there, and did the restoration on his farmhouse, and he made a connection for me, and there we go. In the case of Martin Sheen, I had a producer on Stranger in the Kingdom, Matt Salinger, who grew up in the Upper Valley, And Matt had been an actor and a producer and worked with Martin on a project and helped me make that connection. I sent the script to Martin's, and he dropped it off in Martin's mailbox, and Martin looked at it within a day, liked it, called me, worked for free on the project, so that was really helpful. Bruce Dern, I just sent to his manager rather than his agent because I thought we might get more consideration because managers usually represent fewer actors. Took a look at it, liked it, responded immediately, gave me a phone call. We talked for an hour probably. So I think that it's a question of how do you get to the actor, and it's not always through the agent. So what I'm saying is that in a number of cases it's been through a manager or it has been through a personal connection. You know, every film is different, and I've been lucky. So, and they do help because they help the movies get seen on television. They help the movies get seen in foreign markets.
But I guess, Jay, it says a lot about some of these stars that they're willing, for the sake of artistry, of practicing their craft, and maybe a message that they're committed to, that they will reach down, so to speak, and work with an independent, on a modest budget.
Sure.
Everything doesn't have to be big box office, blockbuster,
Well, I think you can look at the movie industry. There are actors who have done very promising first films, and they basically go to Hollywood and end up stuck in sort of mid-level, character roles that don't really distinguish themselves. And in terms of what their early promise was, they don't always fulfill it because the industry doesn't always provide those roles. So I think that it's a chance for actors to do, if they really are committed to their craft, to stretch, to try to play a character that is outside the norm. I mean, certainly these New England-based characters are. So I think that, I give a lot of credit to those. There are a lot of actors that would never consider it, just because of the money. These actors are working for scale, basically. And so I couldn't be more grateful.
Well, on that note, Jay Craven, in my mind, you have you've pierced the myth, the misperception that Hollywood is everything in the film business and everything gets dominated by Hollywood, when the truth of it is, it's people like you from the independent entrepreneurship end of the movie business that have really, especially in the past 10 or 15 years, 20 years, really achieved a lot of ranking and position in terms of the industry, in terms of jobs and opportunities, and in terms of the future of the industry.
Well, I think that there's no question that we've been able to have an impact, that our films have been seen a lot, they've gotten out everywhere. However, Hollywood still controls the pipelines and the pay scales, and when I sell a film to Showtime on a 3-year license, I'm getting a lot less money than Hollywood is when they sell their film to Showtime. There is a kind of discrimination against independents in terms of just how much compensation is made available, and that has gotten worse over the last 25 years. 25 years ago, there were 30,000 video stores in the United States who were each paying $60 per unit for video. My first feature film sold 40,000 videos out into that network. We were able to travel the country, meet with video telemarketers and take them to lunch and sort of engage them directly, and that really helped you could run a real campaign. But Blockbuster in the late 90s decided they're not going to pay $60 a unit for video anymore. They're going to pay $5 a unit. So you can imagine what that did to revenues that were very important to independents. And television likewise began paying lower fees to independents. So the financial part of it is difficult. And so the model that I'm now using, after having had investment-based films early on, where my nonprofit company was always the general partner in a limited partnership, now the model is really a strict nonprofit model. So the educational part of it, if a budget is $750,000, which is roughly what my budgets are right now, which is lower than they used to be. I was making $2 million films early on, given that Hollywood is spending $62 million on average for its productions. $2 million seems like nothing. Nobody gets rich. I took no pay at all because I had investors taking risk, blah, blah, blah. But now the model is the educational component brings in about $300,000 of the $750, and I have to raise another $450, either through film incentive, which in Peter and John came up to $140, so that's another $200,000 for me to raise, and it's doable. It's a lot of work. We had 539 donors on Peter and John who gave between $10 and $40,000. So you need a mix of people, and again, it's part of that community engagement. And it's always been that way, even during the investments phase of our projects, as we would go around and have parties in different towns and people would come forward. But because the industry is so dominant on how the money flows in distribution, the nonprofit model makes the most sense to us now.
But again, you, I think, are a beacon of hope and an encouragement to a lot of startup entrepreneur movie producers who want to get into this, people with a lot of drive and passion, and they got their first film, so to speak, their baptism. And what would you recommend to those people? What mentoring and advice?
Well, we provide that mentoring directly through the program we do, Movies from Marlboro. But I'm also artistic director of a film festival now called the Middlebury New Filmmakers Festival, which is actually happening the weekend of August 25th through 28th.
Seems to be a lot of films entered there.
There are a lot of films. Yeah. We had 370 submissions. We are showing 77 films, some of them curated. And it's for first and second time filmmakers only. And the winners we take and then tour to venues in each of the 6 New England states. So again, acting on this idea of going out, making your own audience, building your own audience, and believing that New England is a completely viable market and audience for films made in New England. So, but even films not made in New England, the point is that's what our work continues to be about, probably even more than ever, because now Peter and John will end up touring for 3 years. Because there are dates everywhere. I mean, the show at the Bennington Museum sold out. Played Hopkins Center, Dartmouth College 2 weeks ago, 220 people. Weston Playhouse, 200 people. Bethlehem, New Hampshire, little small town, 100 people show up. So the idea is that there are audiences. People do believe that there's a way to take the position that Hollywood does not have the monopoly on all the stories that are worth taking. We can tell our own stories, make our own New England-based films. And the idea of Peter and John made in Nantucket, I mean, I made a lot of Vermont films. I still live in Vermont, and I'm touring all over Vermont. But the idea of why not another part of New England? Let's take a look at the other corner of New England, and let's knit New England together even a little bit more in terms of one place and another. I've always taken my Vermont films to southern New England, so why not?
Well, there are so many more film festivals now than there was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. It seems that many communities that want to promote themselves and their entities, they launch a film festival. And as a result of that, there seems almost to have developed a cult following of film festivals, a whole circuit nationally, internationally even.
For sure. There are hundreds of film festivals. I mean, I hesitated in a way to start another one, but we do something that is unique, which is to take our winners and tour them throughout the country. The other thing is, throughout New England, the other thing I think is important is that to have a film festival is great. It does provide an opportunity for filmmakers to get their work seen. But also, what are you doing the rest of the year to build film culture in that place? To me, a film festival once a year is not enough. And so, again, we're taking these films around, but we're also programming special events in Middlebury because that's the community that we're engaging for this festival. So, for example, in mid-September, on the September 21st, we're showing a film about Norman Lear, the television producer, and we're doing a Skype interview with Norman.
Who is from Vermont.
Who has a place in Vermont, not too far from here.
Right.
So, and then we're doing a Skype telephone live interview with Norman Lear after the screening, and it's because of his Vermont connection that we're making this special event. But we'll also do a screening of sort of the best of the fest in the fall, 2 of those screenings. In the winter, we'll run a special film event once a month in Middlebury, January through May. So it becomes an issue of really trying to engage the community more deeply around film, to also engage high schools. We have a special event where we bring in high school students and show the short film winners and curate a special program for them. So the issue is, how can we do the maximum amount, and should we start a writing workshop, and should we start a filmmaking workshop for kids likewise, and we've done that as well. So trying to create a full view where there's appreciation for first and second time filmmakers, where there's some appreciation for film history. We're showing Charlie Chaplin's The Kid in this festival. It was his first feature film. Barbara Koppel, documentary filmmaker, 2-time Academy Award winner, bringing her in. So let's celebrate film culture. Let's take advantage of all that it offers. And again, let's make that commitment to making our own films here.
Now, Jay Craven, of course, we've heard of big dramatic arts and theater programs and film programs like at NYU, and I know Yale University has a huge drama program, and of course there are a number of major schools, and yet you have a very unique platform that you've created, where at Marlboro College, which I think has about six or 700, 200 students complete.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so 200 college students, and these students can come into your program and actually do hands-on production work, right? From
for sure.
all aspects of the film. And again, work with some distinguished talent, work with some distinguished
Absolutely. Yeah,
stars.
no, it's a great experience.
I mean, you seem to have pulled the rug out from NYU, so to speak. With this.
we have a relationship with NYU where we're now able to recruit our production designers from the design program at NYU. So they've been helpful. And in general, but they don't participate in my film intensive program. I'm not sure why, but they are helpful. They help me find editors. They help me find production designers, and we appreciate that. But no, the Movies from Marlboro program is unique in the country, so we're pleased about that. And you don't have to be big to make it happen, and we've shown that. And so that's part of what I guess it's all about. You don't have to be big, and you don't have to be at the center point of the whole media world in order to do something significant. And that's really, I guess, what we're about.
Jay Craven, the future, of course, movie theaters are a dying breed in a lot of circumstances. The economics have completely changed. You see so many emerging technologies, whether it's Netflix or now you see a new generation of cable venues like Hulu, all looking for content. Where do you see this business going? You talked about developing the audience a few minutes ago. Where do you see this industry going? How are people in the next 5 years going to consume their movies?
Well, people are certainly starting to consume their movies more and more on screens, on devices, on cell phones, on computers. You can connect your computer to your television. And I think that I personally miss the experience of getting together in a group setting and watching a movie in a room with 50 or 70 or 100 other people. I think that that's really something very particular. And I think that in Vermont, where we value community so much, it's a great way to have an experience of your own community, a shared experience of your own community. And so we will continue to fight for that as long as we can. Although the new film I just shot this spring, which is a film noir set in the near future, I'm hoping is going to appeal to some younger audience. And we're also editing it both as a feature film and as an episodic series. So we will actually show this new film on Vermont Public Television as one way to show it. We'll also tour it the way we always tour it, as a feature film. We will also probably post it online at some point or work with community access stations. But one of my interests, because I think that younger audiences are going for shorter form media, and I think television is very exciting. A lot of what's happening on television is pretty exciting these days, and it's sort of where a lot of the creative talent is, because making the feature film is so huge, and then getting it properly distributed is increasingly difficult. I mean, you can look at some independent films that are playing theaters, they're doing a tenth of the grosses they would have done 15 or 20 years ago. And so the life of all those films is out in the ancillary markets. Now, one of the problems is, what do the ancillary markets pay? And they don't pay real well. And how that gets solved, and how filmmakers can find a way to sustain a living as a filmmaker, is, I think, a huge question that's up for grabs. Because as you monopolize all these distribution purveyors, it's a buyer's market. And so, you know, if I were Canadian or European, the television rights to my films would be worth a minimum of $800,000. But Showtime can buy a 3-year license for $10,000 or $15,000. And that's a problem in terms of being able to sustain a production mode. With us, again, it's nonprofit, it's education. I mean, that's how we're sort of piecing it together. So where the future is, I don't know exactly. I do know that there are more people wanting to make content, wanting to work in film in some way, and that's a good thing. How we work out the ways in which their voices can be heard, I don't know. Decentralization to me would be the big thing. I would like to see, take the cost of one Hollywood movie, average $62 million, add $50 million for marketing, which is what the average is, $112 million. Take that one movie budget and give it to a new silo at PBS that is sort of hip and smart and creating an independent film channel and paying decent money, and you could commission 200 movies at $500,000 each, and have, wow, nothing would be more powerful to unleash creative visions. And you'd still have an extra $12 million a year for marketing and administration. So, I mean, that's my scenario. That's what I'd like to see. That's what I think would be a good future. And that's sort of, it's a small version of what happens at BBC and what happens at Arte in France and what happens at CBC in Canada. I don't know. That's the way I'd like to go, because then a New England filmmaker would have a place to go. And then right now it's hard.
Jay Craven, our final question: what's a project or a movie that you'd like to do that you still haven't done yet? There must be one you've been contemplating or thinking about.
There's several. I'm in the beginning stage of developing a new film based on a Jack London story, autobiographical novel called Martin Eden. I'd like to do that. There's a country film noir project that I've been involved with for years, would love to get made, called They Don't Dance Much, about a small roadhouse in the early 1940s. Story written by a newspaper editor from Charlotte, North Carolina, who was championed by F. Scott Fitzgerald and Robert Penn Warren and Raymond Chandler. And there it is. It's the only book he ever wrote.
And your website is kingdomcounty.org.
kingdomcounty.org. People can buy our movies. They can find out what's going on as long as we keep up the website. We need some staff, but we do okay.
Jay Craven, independent entrepreneurial motion picture producer. You get an Oscar for this interview.
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
This is Danny Frank for GNAT TV.